sky, your spirit is one with me. You make me stand by the ocean. Your eyes see everything. The slightest of your emotions can make the calmest rain. Forgetting all your mighty glory, vanished from the sky. Just another story. This man-made life.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas, and my guest today is John Kaminski. And I want to share a few of his words with you because it's pretty interesting. The title that we've got on here is Lincoln, Hitler, and Kennedy, and the ruthless thugs who assassinated them are now systematically exterminating us. All three leaders solved the money puzzle, and the Jewish bankers never tolerate that. Good morning, John Kaminski. Excellent words there. And you do something that nobody else in America, as far as I can tell, has enough intelligence to equal that and lump those three great men in the same category.
Actually, Bill Slow did in The Secret of Oz. He didn't call them Jewish because he's Jewish himself. But when you look at that pattern, what leaps out at me anyway is what's happening to us now is exactly the result of that same formula that killed them.
And, you know, we don't think of Hitler as being assassinated by the bankers, but in truth he was.
Yeah, at least metaphorically. He did commit suicide, but he certainly was driven to it by what all those other Jewish-controlled countries did to him.
It's I mean, when you see pictures of Germany before the war, I mean, Hitler was more beloved than Obama is here. way more, right? Way more. But the Obama's not making any moves at the bankers at all. So he's locked in, and they're really getting ready to lock us down the way they did in the Soviet Union. It's interesting, you know, most of your little talk show hosts here, like Alex Jones, talk about Hitler, and nobody ever talks about the Rothschilds. Nobody talks about the, you know, the city of London, where, by the way, isn't that where they set the price on gold? If they want to make a little bit of money off of the gold they've stolen from you, then they just raise a little flag and increase it. And go ahead.
I don't know whether it's you or whether it's me, but I suspect it may be me, but I don't understand why I'm hearing it. But you're coming through broken up, and I'm getting that twang again. Now, we did some analysis on this last week. And as the show goes on, it becomes clearer. But like right now, I can barely understand what you're saying because the sound is breaking up.
All right, let me try this.
And I don't know why that is. It seems to clear up later in the show. I don't know whether... As I say, I don't know whether it's me. Somebody suggested it was me because I don't have a I don't have a wraparound microphone, and I'm just using my computer microphone. But
All right. Well, hold on.
I don't think that's
Let me call you right back and
Okay.
see if it works better.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Is that any better?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Then I've got you, and I've got Crusade Radio, and I've got Talk Show on another line entirely. Got Blog Talk on one radio and one. So we're recording on 3 or 4 different networks here, and it's recording on all of them. So we will get a good show out of this. You know, they try to block us, and they've done that. I just had Dr. Rebecca Carley on yesterday, and I still haven't been able to download or upload those shows to YouTube or anything yet, because they're blocking them. And John, you know what I keep telling people, and I'm just looking here and watching pictures of Ezra Pound and Eustace Mullins flash on the screen, and both of those people talked about Hitler and tried to give us the good view of it. And of course, all we've ever done, and all we ever even hear from the Patriot stations here, like Alex Jones, is demonize the Nazis, demonize Hitler, 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 like some kind of mantra. And Hitler rescued the German people, and that's us. I mean, the Jews had us fighting each other. My whole family came from Germany, right here in Texas. I'm right down around New Braunfels now, where it was all Germans.
Yeah, Germans, it's funny, the German population was probably the most staunch patriots during the World War.
But we saw comparing Obama and Hitler, and it loved all the people. It gave me a chuckle because Obama is loved by the people because he gave them free money and free cell phones. But what Hitler gave his people was self-respect and success in their lives in a very short period of time, and that is the great gift he gave to his people that is now all covered up by all of this Holocaust talk. And if you do a little digging underneath all the Holocaust rhetoric that we've received all our lives, this hand-wringing, supposed atrocity describing invective, you find that this was deployed to cover up the economic miracle that Hitler worked in Germany by eliminating the central banks that caused all the wars and take all the money from the people, and instead, as Lincoln did with greenbacks during at the start of the Civil War, and as John F. Kennedy tried to do with Executive Order 11110 of creating silver certificates, rather than putting money into circulation via debt and loans, he put the money into spent the circulation in the country in the form of real money, no debts involved. The government spent the money, and that improved vastly the situation of everyone. The big scam that the world needs to detoxify and overturn is this debt thing, where the bankers create money out of nothing, and as a result, everybody goes broke, which is the situation that exists now.
You know, it's not. It wasn't just Kennedy, and it wasn't just Lincoln. I mean, old Ironside, you know, Andrew Jackson. He killed a bank for a few years.
Well, there's been a lot of people pointing this out over time. But they're all stifled and vilified and called crazy because of the politicians who want to keep getting money the way they're getting it, which is under the table from the Jewish bankers, so they'll do what they're told. And that's where we're at now. We have the situation in Congress where Congress 100% supported the genocide in Gaza. And now at least there seems to be some kind of rebellion. I see the other day that France and England summoned the Israeli ambassador after Netanyahu decided once again to ignore what the United Nations told him to do and started building more settlements in occupied territories, or announced plans to go ahead with building more settlements in occupied territories. And it's like Israel thumbs its nose at the world and just throws it right in our faces that they can get away with anything they want. They don't have to obey international law because they control all the countries in the world by their control of the money, and the politicians have been handpicked by Jews to not say anything about the absolutely inhuman behavior of the Jewish people in Israel and the lies they tell about everything they do. I mean, I don't have to tell you, and I probably don't have to tell most of the listeners now, that this whole thing in Syria, where they're now saying Syria is going to use poison gas on its own people, this is in the same category as Saddam's weapons of mass destruction that never existed. The poison gas doesn't exist. Assad is not going to use them against their own people, and yet every night on the TV news they bring this up and they say Assad is killing his own people. Assad isn't killing his own people. He's killing the Al-Qaeda mercenaries that have been gathered from all over the world at the behest of Hillary Clinton to overthrow the Syrian government. Why the American people can't see that what we're doing to Syria is exactly what we've done to Libya, it's exactly what we did to Iraq, it's exactly what we did to Afghanistan. And the American people are just willing. It's almost willingly. They prefer to remain in the dark because they don't want to jeopardize their income stream, even though their income stream is drying up by inflation and other things. Where, it's like there's a story that's always on the tip of my tongue, and that is that the American government certainly doesn't represent the American people. People who get into Congress are automatically bought off to forget about the American people and just pay attention to the bankers.
John, I've been through this electoral process with Charles Collins. There's running for president. Wealthy man, nothing under the table, nothing they could use against him, no holding, and had enough money to do whatever he wanted to do. And they stopped him cold. They turned their cameras off when he got up to speak. They unplugged his microphone in places. And the whole crowd sat there and watched this happen, and nobody said nothing. Mm-hmm. Now, we spent $1 billion this year. Americans donated $1 billion to all of these politicians that just sold them out to the bankers. They sold them out to the bankers. They sold them out to the whole police state. They've sold them out, and $1 billion went into the Republican and Democratic campaigns, and then went right to the networks who only told you about those. They never mentioned Gary Johnson. They never mentioned Sheriff Mack when he was running for office. They never mentioned anybody. They don't tell anybody. The control of the media is our biggest threat, really, and it's the most insidious type of mind control. You say, and this is in your article here, that the realization that all wars could be stopped immediately, all the contrived financial depressions could be eliminated completely, and all the worries that undermine human society and allow criminals to prosper and honest people to be hoodwinked and destroyed could be utterly erased from human behavior simply by forbidding the practice of making money off of the manipulation of money.
Yeah, that's the
That
deal.
simple. It's that simple. And it could be put into practice immediately.
Yep.
Why isn't it done? Oh, because nobody knows we're in a dictatorship. We're being sold into slavery. Hell, we are slaves, aren't we?
The people who are blocking it are the politicians that we have elected. The political process doesn't allow for independent candidates. They're all vetted before they're even allowed to run. And the controllers extract the promise from them that they won't say anything about the phony Jewish banking system. And they won't, because they're making millions off it. It's like, there are all these stories out there, I can't give you a specific link, but they're out there, about how all these people in Congress get immeasurably richer once they get into office. I was reading something about Rick Perry in Texas who did that, who basically was unemployed shortly before he ran for governor, and all of a sudden he's worth millions. And representative after representative, Feinstein's husband, Dianne Feinstein, the senator from California, her husband is one of the main Pentagon contractors, and they have stolen untold millions of dollars for people under the guise of representative government. It's just all foul.
What about the $2.6 trillion that George Bush, a Republican, handed to the bankers who own the Federal Reserve, who loaned the money to Bush, so you could pay interest on it out there, folks? I mean, come on! This whole fractional reserve banking is incredible. It's just it's the biggest scam and the biggest con, and nobody does anything about it. I mean, if we hadn't been programmed, if the Americans and the people around the world hadn't been programmed and are ground into poverty, which is another method, it's
there are a couple more ominous things happening after that. Since they got away with that, realized they could get away with anything. So now we have a food supply that is totally screwed up. John, I ate some potatoes the other day. I was cooking my own potatoes, and I thought my stomach was really messed up after I ate them. I had to throw the rest of them away. When you talk to any sensible nutritionist, they'll tell you everything you can buy in a supermarket now has poison in it. There are stories out where you can identify the genetically modified foods based on the consumer codes on the labels on some of them. And then after that, the thing I wanted to talk about, one of the things I wanted to talk about this morning is this whole weather wars thing. They're doing it again on the West Coast. I don't know if you've been paying attention to this. I've been onto it for a couple of days. There was this jet stream of rain. To me, an unprecedented sight on the satellite diagrams. There was a stream of water coming from past Hawaii right at San Francisco, and right now there was one town in California, Petrolia, wherever that is, had 17 inches of rain in 2 days, and the roads are flooded. Big rigs are being blown off bridges, trees are coming down everywhere, and this is another designer storm meant to cripple the United States so they can do whatever they're ultimately going to do. When you start to think of the old terms of politics, you have to wonder if we're not being set up for an invasion by either Russia or China or both, by making the United States so disaster-stricken it can't possibly defend itself, plus all our troops are overseas.
They're also sending Mexican troops in to help the people in New York, and those people are still living in tent cities, and they're being subjected to freezing to death.
Yep.
And they're doing the same thing to them that they did in Haiti, that they did in
right, this is another Haiti. Yeah. So it's like we're being softened up is probably not the right word, but that's what's happening. We're all being softened up and so distressed and beleaguered said we can't possibly defend ourselves. Plus, there's the whole gun thing, where you see when they arrested that prepper. They call them preppers now. Who had a few guns and a bomb shelter in his backyard, and they had a SWAT team swoop down on him and finally caught up to him and thrown him in jail indefinitely. But the situation with the weather disasters, the food poisoning, and the air pollution have left people in such a state that they absolutely, the average person cannot defend himself. And it's like the only choice of people, soon or even right now, is to accept the poison food and the poison government and the poison medicine that the government has supervised the distribution of. So we have to accept their poisons just to stay alive, and that means we're not going to stay alive that much longer.
And keep in mind, over 9 years ago, I recorded the first Homeland Security meeting, Colonel John Brinkerhoff lecturing law enforcement and telling them in case of a single outbreak of smallpox in a major metropolitan area, we'll need 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people, because some of them just won't follow orders. Some of us won't line up on the Kmart or the Walmart parking lot and submit to the vaccines. Now, I just had Dr. Carly on my show, and she's talking about the vaccines being weapons of mass destruction, and you can see them in the Walmart. I mean, come on, Walgreens. Oh, you can get 10% off of groceries if you go to Safeway and get your shot, or you can go into Walmart and get another little bonus for taking a shot. And there's no epidemic right now. There's nothing going on except they're killing us with these vaccines and with their medicines.
Did you see that thing in Worcester, Mass. The other day where they started a program, turn in your guns and get a free flu shot?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We can not kill two. They're really good about that. They're really good about telling us in advance everything that's going on. Everything that they're going to do, and we got the mark of the beast showing up on. You're mandated to take that April 13th or April 15th, something like that, isn't it? On the health care bill, you got to get chipped. So George used to forget his medication, but now he's got this little chip. They got commercials for it, John.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Anyway, it's pretty bleak. It's bleak every day. We were going to talk about the story I wrote yesterday about everybody being terrified of tomorrow. And so I wrote one last night. I can't help myself. I just keep writing them, but
share it with us. Share it with us. I love it. I love your work.
The thing of it, really kind of puts the last nail in our coffin, is that there is no one on the public spectrum of media, certainly, but on any other level, there doesn't seem to be anyone who is really advocating for policies that are the best interests of the existing Americans. It's like all the concern from the Obama administration and the federal government seems to be worry that people that we're dragging in from other countries have more benefits than existing Americans, and this to me is a sign that they're deliberately, and I'm not really casting an aspersion on people who live in other countries, but they're deliberately polluting the population of America with people who can't help themselves, to assure that more and more people get on the government dole. And once they're on the government dole, they can't speak out against the government, or they jeopardize their benefits. It's the same bind that the government has many of the churches in today, who are dependent on their non-profit status for continued survival, so they can't say anything against what the government is doing. or the IRS will ride in there and say, I'm going to take your property because you're no longer a nonprofit. So there are all these coercive blackmail strategies to make people impotent rather than making them stronger. And this is exactly the wrong thing to be doing if we want to maintain American traditions of independence and liberty. And of course, the people in power, that's the last thing they want, because it's all about control and exploitation. And now that they've achieved all of that, the next step is extermination, and that's happening everywhere that you see. Everybody's
Dr. Carley and I talked about that. There's been more people, and even Alex Jones will tell you this, there's been more people murdered and killed by their own governments or wars in the last 100 years, in the last century, than all other times in history combined.
There was a report came out the other day that chemotherapy actually prevents the curing of cancer by making it worse in some way where it can no longer be treated, and yet everybody who comes down with cancer from all of these deliberate influences runs right to the doctor and they say, oh, you got to do chemo to kill the cancer, but what it really is killing the people.
And nobody knows, because there were reporters that I met that had done a story on milk, on the milk industry down in Florida, and they were banned. They were banned from saying anything. They couldn't get the information out.
Well, that was 10 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
So it's been happening a long time. Now let me ask you about Iceland. Iceland. Now they did. You point out again in your article here that all of the wars could be stopped immediately. All the contrived financial oppressions could be eliminated completely, and all the worries that undermine human society and allow criminals to prosper and honest people to be hoodwinked and destroyed could be utterly erased from human behavior simply by the practice of forbidding the practice of making money off of money, the manipulation of money. It's that simple. When it can be put into practice instantly into the turmoil and trauma that plagues everyone in the world at this moment, why doesn't it happen? Why doesn't it happen? You know very well the answer, because the world is controlled by shrewd deceivers who exploit the less clever, the straightforward and gullible human inhabitants of planet Earth with rituals and traditions that have existed from time immemorial and made the exploitation of others the leading occupation of all time. What happened in Iceland? They kicked the bankers out, they arrested them, but we haven't heard, even on the internet, we haven't heard any reports from Iceland, have we?
No, it's a tremendous whiteout of that information, because that's the formula we have to follow. We've both been saying this for a long time, that almost anybody in public office, virtually everybody in public office, needs to be dragged out and put into jail, and that includes the judges most especially, because the judges are all stooges now working for Israel. And until we do that, we're as good as dead. There's a larger question that's raised about all of this that a friend of mine in Laos, of all places, who's a Brit who lives in Laos, just wrote this morning. We don't need government. We don't need the government. The government is the cause of all our problems. It pretends to regulate and protect us. But really, because it's been taken over by the Jews in virtually every country on earth, it has become a murder weapon. And we're seeing it no matter where we turn. And we're also seeing a total absence of people, total absence of people fighting against us. There's only renegades and trailers like you and me and a few others who are saying, no, this is not the way we should go, because anybody who has a larger house or a better job is conditioned to protect his possessions. And even though he's going to lose them, he's still trying to protect them. And that's why he can't come right out and say the very people who are running our government and are our so-called leaders are the very ones supervising our demise.
All right, now we're working on chapter 2 here. John Kaminski is my guest today, and we're talking about the similarities between Lincoln, Hitler, and Kennedy. These are all leaders of our countries that stepped forward and wouldn't pay the interest and wouldn't bow to the bankers, and they were murdered. And this has happened to senators that stood up against them. This is if you're running for office, you don't get any coverage because the press is controlled by them. And I mean, even saying this, I get the little ripples of guilt because I don't believe the little old grandma sitting next door to me that had 2 sons for doctors, that lives in the same neighborhood, that exists in the same country, that is inhaling the same chemtrails that we're hailing, the aluminum and the iron and the barium that again they're radiating us completely over and over and over again, even with the cell phone radiation. That's radiation, folks. The chemo that you pointed out, they are slowly killing us. So we don't make it much past that 65, that magic age of 65. And nobody knows about it. Nobody knows about it except, what, you and me, and we're conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, very small percentage. Very small percentage. Everybody's getting their information from television. God, when I watch the evening news, I can't even watch a whole segment, a whole program of the evening news because I wind up screaming at it for the lies that they're telling me. And the greatest liar of all is Obama. I mean, when you watch those videos of him saying what an evil guy Gaddafi was, and then you realize that in Libya, everybody loved Gaddafi because he gave them all this free stuff. He gave them houses, he gave them college tuition, he gave them free medical care, and Obama will get up there and in a perfectly convincing way say he's abusing his own people, he's killing his own people. Now they're doing the same thing with Assad, and it's the same deal. It's not happening that way. And now it's like Americans are so jaded and so deluded that the government, Hillary Clinton and people like that can actually come out and say, yes, we're arming the rebels to overthrow this terrible dictatorship. And this is their admission that they are invading this country. They're invading all these countries. They're not trying to save anybody. You only need to look at the condition of Libya today and compare it with when Gaddafi was there and everybody was happy. Now anybody who supported Gaddafi is getting shot down in the streets in Libya, and the Jewish-controlled American papers say, oh, we've brought Western democracy to Libya. Yeah, this is Western democracy. They shoot people in the streets. And of course, the more relevant thing to all of us and everybody who's listening to this in this country or any of the Western countries is that they have gotten away with so much of this that they're bringing these tactics home and just taking the people off the streets that they want to take off the streets. And God help any politician or would-be politician who gets up and tries to say any of this, because they start out with character assassination. I was actually reading a good description of this process in Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, about the press, where the press will drag these characters out of nowhere, like Obama, and make them heroes, and the people who are consuming Jewish media, so they say, oh, there's supposed to be something to this guy, everybody's writing about him, and they turn him into a superhero, and he's really a brain-dead puppet. And conversely, people who are in various legislative bodies around the country who are genuine for some kind of positive change, both sides always made up about them, and that spiritual lives are ruined all because of the lies told by Jewish media. And America and the world are totally in the fall of this economic so long. People who control the people control our lives and everything they tell us.
Now, let me add something. They are going to let me cut this off. They are preparing. They have armed the police. They have trained the police. They keep expanding the SWAT teams. It was the SWAT team that shot the veteran in the hallway of his home in front of his wife and children. They shot him because he was walking down his hallway to answer the door with a gun, and they kicked the door in. Now, police in East Cleveland, Ohio, just shot an unarmed couple 137 times after a 25-minute pursuit. Now, they had no weapons in the car, no weapons at all. Nobody fired a shot except the police. Now, folks, you think that it can't happen here? You think that these shootings in Phoenix or in Colorado in the movie theaters, you think that is just some people going off the wall? No, they have mind control techniques. We've talked about them this week. It's called the devil's drug or something like that. They can blow it in your scopolamine. They can blow it in your face, and suddenly you kidnap yourself. You go to your bank account. You take all the money out. It's and this is prized in Colombia. They just did a film, put a film up about it on Facebook. So they're using this against you, folks.
That's what Dr. Collins likes to point out, and really that's how they're going to precipitate the police crackdown. Is they're going to do the scopolamine treatment on people. People are going to do what they're told to do, and they're going to be told to go out and eat other people, and then the SWAT teams and the army that has been brought home from combat zones are going to go after them and shoot indiscriminately, and that's going to be a great population reduction technique when they finally decide to do that. But scopolamine is the way that the zombies are going to be created, and the media is going to represent them as the purveyors of some sort of a disease that needs to be stamped out, and the people who are going to be stamped out are perfectly ordinary, innocent bystanders, just like the New York cops did that time when they supposedly had a killer on their hands and started spraying bullets on a crowded street. Hit about 9 people just to try to kill this one guy. Collateral damage was being institutionalized into a weapon of population reduction, and the government officials are going to get up there and wring their hands and say, "Oh, this is a terrible tragedy. Well, we had to stop the terror." And that's the thing about all these billions of dollars that have been and that have been spent on anti-terror measures, and all of the people who have been needlessly molested and poisoned by TSA to try to prevent terror. There have been no, what was the figure the other day? There have been no episodes of terror in this country, and of the over a certain period, there were like 261 supposedly bona fide examples of apprehension of terrorists about to commit terrible crimes. Of the 261, all but 5 of them were generated by sting operations by the FBI and the cops.
Wait a minute. I have some statistics on that, John. I think they have found 59,350 breast implants. They have found 8,249 enlarged prostates, They found 3,172 hemorrhoid cases. They found 1,485 hernias. They found 133 transvestites. They found 3 natural blondes. And here it comes, drum roll, 0 terrorists discovered.
Yeah, that's the deal. I remember seeing that. That's funny.
And
yeah.
we gotta laugh at the assholes. I'm telling you, you know. But they're going to expand that. They're already coming into your buses and your trains. Now they're going to stop you on the street and do this. And this is maybe the one thing Alex Jones is right about. He's telling you that they're going to start doing this. He's telling you because he's got advanced information, and you know, if he's got, you know, there is probably something you can do about this, folks. I mean, it's not totally hopeless. You can go out and buy kosher, and then you're pretty sure that hasn't been poisoned.
I wouldn't count on that. You know, Alex Jones says a lot of things that are right. Unfortunately, he doesn't ever tell us who's responsible for it.
Well, he doesn't want to put his wife and family at risk. His children are Jewish. They're being raised in a Jewish environment. I don't know what he is. I never asked him. I did ask him once if he ever considered that his wife or girlfriend at that time was his handler. And he's never talked to me since, but...
No, he doesn't talk to regular people.
Well, they do that. I mean, what was Monica Lewinsky? President Clinton was getting a little too haughty about his control, you know, and his connections in the drug industry, which is run by the CIA and Mossad folks.
I don't even know why they did that. That was such an act of political theater because Clinton was in their pocket to begin with. I don't know why they had to do it to him. Speculation that I've read is that they wanted him to go into Iraq big time and he wouldn't do it. But I don't see any of those guys, any of those poseurs who pretend to be president as resisting what they're told to do. All of these, it's like the conversation about Obama now. I've had a number of otherwise sane people write to me and say, this military purge that appears to be going on is Obama standing up against the Jews, and in fact all of the Jews are saying that to try to gain sympathy for Israel, but it ain't happening that way. I mean, he's in their pocket. He was totally invented by them, and the really sad thing is that the alternative in Mitt Romney, it's like this split kind of typifies the split that they say exists in the CIA and other government agencies between genuine patriots and people who are working for the Jews. And I'm telling you right now with absolute certainty that there is no good side in this struggle. It's just two factions of people who are both controlled by the Jews creating the appearance of democracy, but there is no democracy in this country. It's all a controlled operation, a stage drama.
Our founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin knew and warned us in advance that democracy was 2 wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner.
Yeah, that's right.
And right now, who's our largest employer in this country?
Mm-hmm.
Government. Government is the large. They keep expanding the agencies. So you've got an inspector to check on, see if somebody tightened that screw down tight. It's all, and they know they're not going to turn the wrench themselves. They're not going to farm it. They're not going to hoe a row themselves.
And even private industry now. This was especially true during the distribution of so-called stimulus money back a few months ago or a couple of years ago. When they had the big multi-billion-dollar hike by Israel that was voted on by Congress, and then there was this program to provide stimulus money to businesses, and that was to assure that all the businesses who were doing work for the government were the ones that survived. All the other ones who didn't get the stimulus money wound up going out of business. That's something that everybody pretty much missed, but that's what that was all about.
Okay, let's see if I can understand this now. All your politicians work for the bankers. The FBI works for the bankers. So if you try to start any type of money laundering that you were are money manufacturing, like the guy that did the silver coins, and whoa, he went to jail for counterfeiting because he put $1 on one of those silver coins.
But
And
an extension of that is science, where reputable people who go into science and think they're going to be able to stay out of politics are sadly misguided, because science is determined by the amount of government grants it's received, and the grants only go to scientists who are working on new weapon systems. So all science has been subverted into working for the government as well. And the same is also true of universities, where you're only allowed to, we're mostly allowed to study subjects that have some application to the increase of government tyranny. So this whole thing is so widespread and so ubiquitous that I don't see how anybody's going to get out of it, because you can't really go off the grid and run away and hide somewhere. I mean, they can spot you wherever you are. This totalitarianism is here, and it hasn't been fully implemented yet because they haven't killed enough people. But once they've killed enough people, which is going to be millions upon millions more, you're going to find that there's no way to get a path to freedom, because the government will have aced out every opportunity to do that, and it's really delusional to think you can become a prepper and hole off in some mountain retreat and fend off the people who might come after you. That's a total illusion and a total waste of effort. The only way we can get this done is to take down the whole system, is to arrest all the bankers, dismiss the entire government, and go about living our own lives without this kind of interference. And it's really hard to see that that's going to happen now, because everybody is so dependent on the system for their welfare.
it was created that way. It was created there. I can't rebel. I'm on Social Security.
Yeah, me too.
You know, so it's a conundrum, folks, and we have to find the answer to it. I think that it's happening right now in Iceland. I think they've improved their situation in Iceland, and that's why you don't hear anything about it.
That's true, but it's a little different situation in there, since they have a homogenous population. I mean, they're all Icelanders. Who would want to live in Iceland? It's a little chilly. And that's the same thing about Nazi Germany, where they were able to implement policies that were beneficial to everyone because they were a homogenous population. But the minute you have the melting, the kind of diverse melting pot that you have in this country, that plan won't work in the same way. I don't know what plan will, but that plan won't work because there are too many divergent opinions. And in this country today, it's 50% of the people in the United States are dependent on the government for their lives, and that's a percentage that's only going to grow higher. So people don't want to overthrow the system that's keeping them alive, no matter how terrible their existences are. If they throw that away, they're going to die. And so that's where they've got us. That's where they've got us by the short hairs. Where revolution or even secession that everybody's talking about, that's a non-starter from the outset, because people, as we saw in the elections, all these Mexicans in Southern California and Arizona saying, "Oh, we're going to take over the system now," and they are going to take over the system now, but they're going to be robots and have no say in what is really happening, and they're going to be subject to the same situation as the rest of us, where we can be killed on a moment's notice if we don't follow these. I mean, America has become a penitentiary where if you don't even say what they want you to say, they have so many ways that they can take you out and ruin your life.
That's right.
It's like we can't lay down and take this, because if we do, we're going to be dead. And that's what people are afraid to realize. They have to get a little more desperate before they're going to turn to that, and they will get a little more desperate, and they will turn to that. But since it's already too late now, it's going to be too late then. So, not that I have any solutions. Everybody's always telling me, "Oh, you got to provide solutions." The only solution is to completely dissolve the federal government in its regulatory aspects, and you know, people who defend the government system are going to say, "Oh, that'll be terrible. Everybody will do what they want." And my question is that going to be any worse than what we have now? No, it isn't. It's going to be better. But I don't know that we'll get to that point, because the real element that is lacking in trying to straighten out our lives is the courage of individual people. And I know that's easy for me to say because I don't have kids, I don't have a business, I don't have investments, so it's easy for me to say, but it's a really tough choice for everybody else who is more embedded into the society than I am. And these are the problems that we face. But the first step in at least attempting to turn this around is to really scrutinize and put on the hot seats all of these people who are in elected office, because they're all traitors. They're all covering up the truth. They're all secretly or publicly endorsing this criminal behavior.
The Jews loan them the money and then they own them. I mean, the Bible told us about that. They told us that the borrower would be slave to the lender. And that's exactly what's happening now. We'll loan you the money on your house. They didn't loan you nothing, folks. That's, I mean, we proved that over and over again. Oh, and by the way, John, on one of my chat rooms here on TalkShoe, I've got one Jew there who put out freeamericanradio.com to tell everybody how this host supports Nazis. He's got an opinion on YouTube. John is a piece of shit. Then your mama tell you it's rude. I hope someone hangs you, Clay and John. You are COINTELPRO. This host is COINTELPRO. Visit freeamericanradio.com and learn more about this host who supports. This is all put out by a Jew, by a group of Jews, by Leonard Horowitz, who I watched actually transform. I thought I had to go up and apologize to David Icke. I said, you know, I used to think you were a little off the wall, David, until I saw somebody do that.
Yeah.
And you know, this is what they do. I mean, you've got one guy here, one guy that comes into all of my chat rooms to tell everybody what a racist guy is. And this is one of thousands. This is the one that's just assigned to me. I've even had him admit, John, that they get paid for doing this.
That's right.
For making these harassing statements and all that.
The thing everybody has to know is that the Jews are the bad guys and the Nazis were the good guys, and that's a tough hurdle for America to get over, because they've been so indoctrinated in the reverse. And that's the thing to remember about all information from most Jews is exactly the opposite of the truth. And the Nazi-Jew relationship is exactly one of those, where you realize the good that Hitler did for his people and the good that following those same policies would do to us. You're going to finally be able to see that what the Jews have been telling you all this time is a lie, and they can only resort to threats and slander and lies to intimidate you into believing what they say, but what they say is a lie. There's some famous biblical quote about that, which I can't remember, but they are the fathers of lies. They have been that way throughout their history. They're continuing to do it, and because the American people have bought into those lies for hundreds of years, they now face complete destruction.
It's, John, I mean, I've been told so many times, Clay, you could do just so much better if you wouldn't talk about marijuana or the Jews. If you just didn't do that, you'd be so much better. We could support you. We can't support you as long as you talk about the Jews. Why? Because the Jews will come after them too.
Oh, yeah.
And they're scared. They know that. I mean, I was told on a biker board, oh, you can't talk about the Jews. Well, I'll tell you what, I will stop talking about the Jews when they stop talking about the Muslims, when they stop killing the Palestinians, when they stop killing our presidents and everybody else that opposes pure theft. I don't oppose anybody because of their race, because of their religion. The Constitution protects us. You want to bang your head against that wailing wall, go ahead and knock yourself out. But
we don't have to rise up we're all going to hang separately. That's what Ben Franklin said. It's true. It's true then. It's true today. And that's the only answer, is that we all have to rise up against these lies and stop them and overthrow them. And frankly, I don't think the American people who've been deluded for so long have the guts to do that.
The Bible told us we'll forget who we are. We'll forget what we are. We'll forget that we're supposed to be out here doing God's work. Or actually, I would say that the God that was invented by the Jews over 3,000 years ago are false gods. I don't think they're the real God. I don't think they're what holds the fabric of the universe and your molecular structure together. I don't believe that the God of Yahweh, who wanted Abraham to sacrifice his children, maybe Christian identity is totally wrong. Maybe this whole thing of Christian identity was created out of the Talmud to make them as evil as the evil they're supposedly opposing, John.
There's something to that.
And so what if Yahweh was the bad guy, and maybe Lucifer rebelled against Yahweh and was kicked out of hell and onto earth to try to help us? I mean, this is the extent of the lies and the deception of these people is monumental. And even J. Edgar Hoover told us that the average man is stymied, is bumfuzzled, I guess you could say, when coming face to face with a conspiracy so vast, and coming to the realization that everything you learned in your life was probably wrong and fed to you, merely propaganda fed to you. They don't call television programming for nothing, folks. And
you don't have to pay attention to any of that spiritual stuff. You just have to open your eyes and see what's going on. In fact, paying attention to that spiritual stuff actually blinds you to what's really going on. You just have to see the corruption that is caused by money, and you have to take it away from private entities, return it to a genuine government, and let the government spend it into circulation, and all the wars will end.
all right. We are just about out of time, folks. We've got to pass this information on, pass this show on. Let people live. Let your friends, let your relatives hear what common sense truly is.
Yeah.
John Kaminski, thank you for being with me.
Thanks for being there, Clayton. Keep it up.
All right. Bye-bye.
See you.
Oh.